Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Jessica Brinkley, and I'm a Senior Program Policy Specialist with the National Education Association's ESP Quality Department. And we would like to welcome you to the Strong Public Schools 2020 Using Your Voice, Leading in the 2020 Election webinar. I, along with my colleague, Dorothy Vu, a Senior Communications Specialist within our ESP Quality Department, will be serving as your facilitators for this evening's informational webinar. This presentation is brought to you by NEA's ESP Quality Department and NEA's Campaigns and Elections. The ESP Quality Department, housed in NEA's Center for Great Public Schools, represents and advocates for the nearly 500,000 NEA Education Support Professional members, also referred to as ESP. Our strategic focus is to elevate ESP careers by developing, implementing, and promoting best practices, policies, and professional supports that equip ESP with the knowledge and skills to become empowered leaders, accomplished professionals, and members of a high-quality workforce prepared to meet the needs of the whole student. Before we get started this evening, I would like to take a moment to walk you through just a couple of housekeeping items. First and foremost, this session is being recorded. You will receive an email with the link to the webinar recording 7 to 10 business days after the conclusion of this webinar. To help ensure that we capture a quality recording, all participants have been placed in mute upon entry mode. Although all participants have been muted, we ask that you also ensure that you stay muted throughout the session unless you are unmuted by the host. At the bottom of your screen, you will notice that there is a chat feature that has been made available for your use throughout this session. This interactive feature can be used to ask questions, make comments, or participate in various activities throughout this session. While we have made time for question and answer towards the end of the webinar, please feel free to type questions into the chat as they come to mind. We will track these questions as they come in, and we'll save any unanswered question to use for the opening of our Q&A time. Should we not have time to answer your question, we will contact you individually with a response. No question is a bad question, so please speak up via that chat feature. And if you need anything clarified, or if you have something to ask the group, go ahead and put it out there. Materials and handouts from today's session will be available for download directly from the chat box after you have completed the session evaluation at the end of the presentation. The evaluation will appear in the form of a 3-question poll on your screens at the end of the session. If you are watching this presentation as a posted recording, materials and handouts will be can be found available for download on the ESP Webinar Archives page under the session description. Due to technological limitations around participation verification, personalized certificates are made available to participants of live webinar presentations only. If you are participating in tonight's live session and would like a personalized certificate emailed to you, please send a written request to espqweb@nea.org, and we will type that into the chat area. That's espqweb@nea.org. Be sure to include personalized certificate in the subject line and the name of the session, as well as your full name as it appears on your webinar registration form in the body of the email request. Now, before we engage in tonight's lively discussion, I would like to begin by acknowledging that we across the country meet on the traditional land served by Native peoples. We honor America's first peoples and all elders, past, present, and emerging, and we are called on to learn and share what we learn about the tribal history, culture, and contributions that have been suppressed in telling the story of America. At this time, I would like to welcome my NEA Campaigns and Elections colleagues, Lee Hedgepath and Katrina Mendiola, who will be serving as tonight's presenters. We thank you for joining us tonight in this timely presentation. And so to get things started, I'm going to pass the baton over to Katrina, who will introduce you all to some special guests that we have with us this evening.
Thank you, Jessica. Thank you everyone for joining us tonight. Before we get into the meat of the program, I did want to turn it over to some of our special guests this evening who want to say hello. So we have from NEA Executive Committee, Christine Sampson-Clark and Eric Brown, and the NESP Chair, Ray Nuso. So I'm going to turn it over to Christine and let her take it away.
Hi, thank you, Katrina. Thank you, everyone. I really just wanted to take this moment to say thank you so much for giving up your time this evening to be part of this very important discussion. As we all know, we have a lot of work to do in our campaign 2020 work. And what I'm excited about as a former bus aide and a former instructional aide, that ESP members are honored and their voice is part of this discussion to make sure that your needs are met when it comes to working towards the important elements of what has to be done around Campaign 2020. So thank you so much for being on the call and for the work that you're going to definitely do ahead of us. And from now, I would like to pass it over to my friend and colleague, Eric Brown.
Well, thank you so much, Christine. My name is Eric Brown. I'm a high school biology teacher in Evanston, Illinois, and I represent all of you on the NEA Executive Committee. And I also wanted to say thank you to all of our education support professionals who are part of this call, because, you know, our ESP have actually won some victories this week from the Supreme Court. Our LGBTQ plus ESPs, our Dreamer ESPs, and I would say all of us who have colleagues who are in either of those categories. And I think that those victories actually underscore why it's so important that we have ESPs involved in the election 2020, because it's not just about the Supreme Court, it's actually about our jobs. It's about COVID-19 and the pandemic that we're experiencing. I know that we've actually lost ESPs in the line of service doing the job of delivering either nutrition or even academic services to communities during the COVID-19 pandemic. And in particular, I'm speaking of one of the first ones that I was notified about in Kentucky as one of our members. And I know that we've lost probably more than just that one person. I know we've lost more than one, but the job that you do as education support professionals is really something that is holding together not just communities, but it's holding together our schools, and we need to continue to honor you. And so I hope you will continue to be involved in election 2020. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to the NCESP chairperson, the president of NCESP, Ray Nuasu, my good friend from Texas. So Ray, thank you for having us, and thank you, all of you, for being on this call today.
Thank you, Eric. Good evening, everyone. I am so pleased to be here as your NCESP president. I'm going to, Eric had a great lead. We know that as ESPs, myself as a middle school secretary, that we're the ones on the front line. It's been all over the media. My colleagues in Dallas, the cafeteria employees were on the front of the Time magazine. I know in my city and other cities that I've talked to ESPs, we're taking those buses out and getting Wi-Fi for our kids. On top of the school lunches, breakfast and lunches are being delivered. And I know in Texas and other states, ESPs are being called back to work, but they're being called back to work and not given the protective equipment that they need to go back to work. Just a colleague that I just talked to said, and she's an office staff, said we had to go back to work. They told us to disinfect everything, but they didn't give them the disinfectant. They had to buy it out of their own pockets. And we all know as ESPs, we make the least amount of money than anyone on campus. And we struggle every day how to make ends meet for our families. So, you know, with what's going on with COVID, as Eric said, with what Christine said, how important this election is. It is so important. I'm so happy that Katrina and her team decided to, Carrie and her team decided to have this conversation with the ESPs and hear from ESPs, because I'm just one ESP. There are thousands of us out here. We need to know, and Katrina and Carrie, their teams to know, what do we need as ESPs? What do you need from me as the school secretary? What do you need from me as a bus driver or a custodian? What tools can I receive to help me with this upcoming election? We know how important this election is. No one has to tell us, of all people, how important this election is, because we know that we're working on the front lines. We're not given what we need. Our custodians are not given what they need to make sure that staff and students are safe when they come back to school. And with this election, and I'm not talking about presidential election, yes, we need a new president. In the words of Lily, we must have a new president. Nobody can deny that. But we also have to remember our down ballots, fighting in our states, in our cities, our school boards, our city council. They're making these decisions. Our governors, these are fights that we can fight on the ground in our city. As all know, ESPs live and work in the communities in which they work in the communities in which they unlike a lot of teachers, we are the ones there with our students. You know, every weekend we see them, we're with them, and we can make a difference. We as ESPs working in our communities, talking to parents, we have a close relationship with parents because we live in our communities. We can make a difference. ESPs, I'm going to say that again. We as ESPs can make a difference in this upcoming election, in all those elections. And I know I'm preaching to the choir, but NEA needs to hear from us. What tools do we need to get out there and fight for these changes? Because we know there's got to be changes. We know that some of us may lose our jobs when school starts because the first people that get cut when their budget cuts are us as ESPs. We need the tools to get out there and fight. And Carrie and Katrina's team is here to help give us those tools. And right as I wrap up, I'm going to say again, as I repeat all the time, in the words of my NEA president, we need a new president. As my daughter calls him Donnie, it's time for Donnie to go. We've had enough of Donnie and his team. It's time for him to go. So I'm going to end that by saying, ESPs, let's get out here, work, and get ourselves a new president. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Christine. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Ray. Those were great and important words, and we're really excited to be here with you guys tonight to do this webinar, but definitely do not intend for this to be the beginning and end of this conversation. We see this as just getting started. So I'm going to put some questions in the chat because I think first we want to hear from you. We want to hear in your words, what are some of your hopes and fears around the election? What are some of the things that are on the top of your mind about issues that you're seeing in your schools, in your communities, within your families? So much is happening, you know, in the country and the world right now, and it's a lot coming at everybody every day. So I know there's a lot on the top of people's minds, and if folks just want to use the raise hand function, if you go to the participants button, you should be able to raise your hand. Then Jessica will be able to see you and unmute you, and you can tell us what's on the top of your mind, or ask a question, or share with us whatever you would like to share. But what I would, you know, like I said, what we really wanted to start with was hearing from you as is related to the election, and it doesn't have to be presidential. It can be anywhere up and down the ballot. What are some of the top issues that you have, that you're thinking about as you approach this fall and voting? Jessica, do we have any takers?
Okay, Tina McClory.
Hi.
Answer?
Hello, everyone. I'm Tina McClory. I'm from Florida. And our biggest concern, I think, with being on the PAC committee is the ability to communicate. How can we communicate with our members other than phone banking to get the word out, to educate the members, to help them understand which candidates we're interviewing with my PAC right now, other like other local elections and school boards, to get that communication out to them, which candidates are education friendly, other than just phone banking.
Then this is the perfect place for you to be, because that's exactly what we're going to talk about.
Great.
Anybody else?
Yes, our next person is Matthew Powell.
Good evening. Thank you for sponsoring this webinar. You know, being from Kentucky, we had a huge victory with our governor election. We elected a pro-public education governor and eliminated a Republican bully who threatened educators and basically just attacked public education. So, but that would not have been possible without the almost 47,000 ESPs across Kentucky. So going forward, we need to really relate to the campaign committees for president to really recognize ESPs, get on our level and really highlight the work that we do. Yes, you know, we often get you know, dissatisfied whenever we use the term teachers, and you know, we've transitioned to educators. But coming from a red state in Kentucky, my ESPs, we want that personal connection to ESPs. So it's important that, I know it's possible in Kentucky we can shift the narrative with our deep red state by electing Joe Biden for president. But what we need in Kentucky is for Joe to get down personal and relate specifically to ESPs, because it's possible. So thank you.
Thank you for that. Sorry, I'm also taking notes. I know this is being recorded, but trying to capture as much as I can.
Okay, our next person is Lynn Goss.
Hi,
Lynn?
Lynn.
Hi, everyone. I'm hopeful. Back in 2016, I didn't see a whole lot of engagement in my area. It's pretty conservative area, and people were afraid to speak up in the schools. But I'm seeing so much more engagement. There's a group of us across Wisconsin that we call ourselves the meme farmers, and there's quite a few former NEA directors on this committee, and so we are taking information and headlines and creating memes and sharing those across Instagram and Facebook, and just so much more engagement on those and the reaction from those. I'm pretty excited. And so hopefully we can keep that momentum going.
That's great.
Katrina, we also have, I'm going to include these two comments from the chat. One is from Jill. Jill stated that she worries that all the stress and anxiety that is happening in our country, people will tune out. There was also a comment that said, how can we encourage our members that are not registered to vote to register? And then we also have someone who has raised their hand, Mia Ward.
Hi, everybody. I'm Mia Ward from Mobile, Alabama, Human Resources Clerk. My concern with the upcoming election is in the past election, 2016, when Donnie, as someone said earlier, won the election, was that, you know, the popular vote did not win. And it's kind of been on my mind for the last couple of weeks. Is there anything we can do, you know, with our platform to try to influence the electorate? And maybe I'm a little less knowledgeable than some people about that part of it. But I mean, it seems like the more people you have to vote, the electorate can sway the outcome of the election. So what is it that we can do? Because I kind of feel like some of the excitement right now around the Black Lives Matter March, which has gotten everyone's attention, and I'm just concerned that maybe some of that will subside, as Jessica mentioned in the question earlier. Some people will start to tune things out. So, I guess it's a two-part question. We really don't want to lose that momentum to try to make sure that everyone is on board, and hopefully people just have their eyes wide open to see the things that are happening with this particular president. But I guess, how do we keep that momentum going? And is there something that we can do from the electorate standpoint to try to make sure that we get that new president?
Hey, Katrina, can I take a stab at that real quickly without blathering on too long? Hey, everybody, my name is Lee Hedgepeth. I work in campaigns and elections, and my job is to get pro-public education people elected, from Donnie's house all the way down to the school board people who drive you crazy on a daily basis. Your point is well taken, Mia, and it all starts from all the questions that folks have asked and put in the chat. It all starts with educating ourselves and our colleagues. That's the quickest way to do it. There are a lot of people who are one-issue voters or one-party voters. This is about the issues that impact ESPs. Let's be real, it's the economy and jobs right now, because it's a tough economy out there for everybody. But we know that in most district levels, when they start to cut, the first thing they want to do is cut services and things, right? So that's what we need to do. We need to talk to our colleagues and say, hey, did you know? I lead so many sentences or conversations in an election cycle with, did you know? Hey, Audrey, did you know that there's currently a bill going through the US Senate that's going to bring money down to the state and local level? We ought to be talking to our state people and our local people saying, hey, when that bucket of money comes to wherever it comes to, this is what we believe you should do with that. Don't cut positions for bus drivers or custodians. Don't privatize. Right? These are the folks on the front line who are building the foundation for the public schools, period. And that's what we have to do, is educate people. Now, I get a little passionate, and as you see, when we get later into that, I can get wound up. So I'm sorry, Jessica, go ahead.
You're okay. Katrina,
Jessica,
are we taking any more?
I think we're going to have to move on, but before we do, I want to underscore what Lee said. Like your voices are so important. And back to the other question, I just want, as we have this conversation today, and as this conversation continues after today, I just want to put a number out there for everyone to think about. Yes, Donald Trump did lose the popular vote in 2016, but he won enough electoral votes to win, and what that ultimately came down to was about 78,000 votes. If we had won 78,000 more votes within Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, he would have not have been elected president. Now, this organization, collectively, we can influence that many voters, can't we? We surely can make that difference. So let's just keep that in mind. And Lee and I are going to get into the bulk of our conversation today about how you make a plan, and some of the tools and campaigns that we'll be running from Campaigns and Elections. But like we have said, and we have all underscored here, this is just the beginning, and we look forward to continuing to partner well after this webinar today. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Okay. So with everything we do, it comes down to the three main campaign goals for this election. Of course, we want to win, but we also want to build our influence. And what does that mean? That means sorry, it advanced one more than I wanted it to. It means we want to make sure that the candidates, whether it be Joe Biden or anyone else up and down the ballot, is hearing from us from what's important from a policy perspective, and what are the things important to members. And it says you can't see the presentation. Did I mess something up, Jessica?
I'm not sure why. I still see it on my screen. Let me take back control and see if that changes anything. Are you able to see it now?
Yeah, everybody says they can see it. Okay. Great, thank you.
Just let me know when you're ready to switch to the next slide, and I'll advance them for you.
Okay, so you know, we want to make sure that we're showing up in the policy development of all these campaigns as well, which is another very important reason for being involved and making ourselves a visible part of any campaign. And of course, in any campaign, whether it be electoral or anything else, we want to leave everything stronger than we came into it. So we want people to feel strong, you know, stronger in the ways that we do the work, and come away feeling like they can use the tools and the information that they gain to go on and continue the work and continue to grow. So next slide. So I'm just going to do a really quick landscape here, and then I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Lee, just so folks know what we are talking about when we say, at least from a federal perspective, not talking about up and down the ballot, which is also important, but what we talk about when we say we're trying to influence the elections. This is a non-traditional electoral college map, but it shows the states and sort of, you know, which ones we think are the ones that we refer to as probably the most in play. So anything from, I would say, the light blue to the light red right now, any one of those states right now could really go either way for Trump or for Biden. And so, you know, we have to do all the work we can in every state for lots of reasons, but from the presidential perspective, that's where we are focusing for the moment. Next slide. We are also looking at the US Senate. And again, you know, I think we talk in partisan terms quite often, but honestly, you know, we are not an organization that looks at putting, you know, checks in the win column of one party or the other. We are looking at how do we make the policy change that is going to benefit members, that is going to benefit the communities within we work and live. And right now, the current Senate is, excuse me, not making those decisions that are favorable. So we are looking to try to flip some of the Senate seats across the state, including Colorado and Arizona and possibly Maine and some others. And those are some of the states we're going to be looking at as we continue to talk about the Senate work going forward. Next slide. And the same with the House. We won a majority in 2018. We are looking to protect that majority and hopefully grow that majority in 2020. Again, you know, we talk about things in partisan terms, but this is really about policy. And this is really about things like you saw today, DACA, or earlier in the week with our LGBTQ, and, you know, the police reform bills that are currently being debated within Congress. There's so much policy work to do, and this is the path in which we're going to try to get some of this done.
Katrina, can I say something real fast?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's really, really, really important to go back to that Senate slide if it's at all possible, because you're right. This is not about partisan politics. This is about making sure that when things like the HEROES Act, which was passed by the United States House, can be taken up by the United States Senate. And when we're talking about jobs, when we're talking about ESP jobs, we're talking about making sure that there is funding that is going to be available for our states and our locals and our school districts to keep our students and our members safe during this COVID-19 pandemic. So the House has done its job, but the Senate has not. And the reason why it has not is because we have certain people in the Senate who don't take up these issues as seriously as they should. And so again, it's not about partisan politics. It's about making sure that we protect the jobs of our ESP members. And we've got to flip the Senate because the people in charge of the Senate right now are not concerned about that paycheck protection program for public employees, including our education support professionals. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Those are great important points. All right, so slide after this, I think. Oh, yes, sorry. Of course, I cannot forget the gubernatorial campaigns that we have in front of us. this coming year. So we are working very closely in all of these states to make sure that we are fighting for governors that will either continue or will flip to really being on the side of education and, like I said, the communities that we work. I do want to also highlight that, you know, again, going back to the point on nonpartisan, in Utah, you know, this means there are many Republicans who are on our side. So I just want to underscore that we are very much in the fight in the Republican primary in Utah right now. I'm trying to elect a pro-public education governor, and Utah has had success in that in the past, and we are going to continue that fight and are in the midst of that as we speak. All right, next slide. So before we get into the, like, how are we going to do this and how we can start making a plan, I just want to acknowledge where we are, acknowledge that this campaign year is not going to be like any other campaign year we've ever been a part of or seen. The door-to-door canvassing, the worksite organizing, even our RA and PAC fundraising, you know, we do so much of this work face-to-face, and we do so much of this work in school buildings and at meetings and at locals that we're just not going to be able to do as much of that this year. Hopefully we'll be able to reach a point where we're able to do some, but right now we're operating under the assumption that very little, if at all, in-person, face-to-face communication is going to be able to happen. So what we're going to really be talking about a lot in this presentation is how we're going to be doing that work virtually, how we're going to do the digital organizing, how we're going to manage the social distance, how we're going to do online fundraising. And then one of the most important things is how do we grow our vote by mail work that's going to be so essential this election year, because there may not be an opportunity for people to vote in person in lots of places, or people may not feel safe voting in person even if the in-person opportunities open up. So we're going to be talking about that too. So with that, I think the next slide is I'm turning it over to Lee to talk to us about how you make a plan.
Thanks, Katrina. And there have been some great questions in the chat. I know there was some concern that Mia raised about the security and safety of vote by mail. We in Campaigns and Elections are heavily looking into that in all the key states. The most important thing, again, is going to come down to educating ourselves about vote by mail and the process. The system itself will be secure. It's understanding the process so you can get the application to get the ballot or whatever the laws are in your state. We will go into that further down the road, not this evening, but as things start to evolve, we're going to get information to all members at NEA to help out. What I'm going to talk about for us is how can we develop a plan? Very basic. How can we develop a plan to get out the vote, educate our colleagues, and get people engaged, get ESPs engaged in the electoral process? This is not about Democrat, Republican. This is about pro-public education candidates who are going to do the right thing. To Eric's point only a moment ago, the U.S. House has things rolling through that will help public education, public schools, students, and employees. And Mitch in the Senate does, and I said Mitch in the Senate, does not really want to move things. We understand that. So some changes have to be made. So we're going to talk about developing a plan and organizing for power. You can go to the next slide. As you go through this, I want you to think about this through multiple lenses. And all of us, I think, look at things through multiple lenses. And Jessica, there may be some transitions in this. You may just want to keep, until I think the third or fourth bullet. Anyway, go back. I want you guys to view this through multiple lenses. The first lens, of course, is as an ESP member or leader or organizer. The second lens would be a community member or a community leader where you are. So the third lens might be a family member or a family leader within your own family. How about a public education expert? You are on the front lines every single day. So you have an expertise to share with people, whether it's your colleagues who may not be aware of some of the electoral things or people in the community. And then finally, a pro-public education voter. You would be amazed at the number of folks at the NEA who are members who do not vote in their own self-interest. We have to stop that. We have to vote and support pro-public education candidates who are going to help us. So I always talk to folks about, why do you need to develop a plan? And a lot of people say, well, I'll just do 1, 2, and 3. Well, that's fine, but you have to have some kind of plan. Because if we don't have a plan, we don't have a roadmap. And if we don't have a plan, we have no way of actually monitoring the limited resources that we have. We don't have bazillion dollars like the Koch brothers do, right? We don't have millions and millions we can just throw into every race or throw at every race. So it will help us create some accountability, and it will also let us know if we're winning as the things are unfolding. Next slide, please. First rule in Lee's book of planning: if it isn't written down, it doesn't exist. Now let's just be honest, and we're not all in the same room, but you can raise your hand if I can see you. How many people on this webinar have ever planned a house party like back in high school? You know you did. Put your hands up. That's right. Right? And you didn't write that one down. Oh, actually you did, right? You wrote it on napkins, little torn pieces of paper. Did I call Ray Ray? Did I call Jimmy? Did I call Betty? That's how we organized. So you wrote it down. That's rule number 1. Next slide, please. We're going to look at this in step-by-step planning. The first thing we're going to need to do is establish a clear objective. Well, our clear objective right now is to win elections. And it's not necessarily just to win the presidential election, as we've been talking about. It's elections all up and down the ballot, right? The presidential, of course, is important, but so is the school board race, because those school board members may make that decision about what happens when resources come from the federal level. So that means we need to educate ourselves about the school board process, who gets involved. We should attend school board meetings. Nothing scares school board members more than employees from the district showing up. And y'all know you have enough blue shirts, red shirts, whatever. You can even wear your public school 2020 Strong Public School shirt if you'd like. Show up and have a presence. It's very, very important. The second thing I want to talk about a little bit is a power analysis. And a power analysis is no great technical thing. A power analysis is figuring out, where are your strengths and weaknesses? That's within your family, that's within the community, it's within your work site, it is within your circle of colleagues. Where is our power? So in that process, you just keep going, Jess. There you go. In that process, we got to identify the key players. So that means the local leaders, right? Community leaders. Who are our coalition partners? Who can we work with to have power and strength as we advance and try to move our cause? And then step 3, you're going to put together a plan. Now understand that this plan shouldn't be 47 pages. It really is not rocket science. This is about organizing, and keep in the back of your mind organizing that house party, because that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to educate our colleagues in the community to let them know, here's what an ESP is. I often hear from ESPs I work with that nobody talks about ESPs. Well, the problem is, as you well know, there's 53 categories within ESPs, and it's really hard to explain that to people and have them understand. But you guys on this webinar right now are the best spokespeople in the country on ESPs. Whatever your role is, you are the best spokespeople. You have to tell your story. So we see there, we're gonna think about messaging, tactics, resources, and timeline. Next slide, please. So our overall goal is to elect pro-public education candidates in 2020. And by the way, 2020 has been a heck of a year already, and we're only in June. I mean, they canceled the NCAA tournament. We're having a virtual RA. And I'm going to tell you now, the election will be like no other election we've ever experienced. So we need to be prepared, right? We have to be very clear about what our objective and our goal is. And when we're talking with people and sharing information with people, we want to be concrete and specific so we can get folks to help us. It's very clear wherever we are and whatever races you get involved in, what your goal is and how we can get there. Next slide, please. So when we start thinking about strategy, and remember, we're going to write this down because if it's not written down, it doesn't exist. So our strategy is going to be, how are we going to use the power that we have determined we have to advance our cause? So we're going to figure out in the existing relationships that we're involved in, how can we use those relationships to advance our cause, or do we need to rearrange some things? And again, remember, we are talking about issues. No, that's fine. We are talking about issues, not party. We're talking about issues. Now, this slide is an important one, and you will, all this information will be available to you. Go ahead, Jess. We're going to go ahead and show the whole thing. It's called a SWOT analysis. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So what we have to do is look where we are and look at our perspective, so that if I'm organizing my family, what are my family's strengths when it comes to getting everybody to go to the polls and vote, or absentee, or vote by mail, whatever the case may be. What are our weaknesses? Well, you know what? Maybe some of the folks at the work site where I am aren't aware of a position that some candidate has, or aren't trusting of the system that's set up. It's our job as organizers to help them learn and educate them. And we will keep it as basic and as simple as necessary. Voting matters. Elections have consequences. That is one of the things that I say all the time. So when you have a colleague, family member, friend, somebody at the Piggly Wiggly, wherever you are, who says, you know what, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I vote or not. Yes, it does matter. It absolutely does matter. And all you have to do is look back in 2016 and in some other races. It matters. So we're going to look at our strengths, weaknesses, and then we're going to think about the political environment and what are our opportunities and threats. And this is where local races are really important. You guys, again, are community pillars. You may not even know that, but you are. If you drive a bus, you are the first person to greet that child in the morning, and you may be the last person who smiles at them at the end of the day. So you have an impact that goes beyond anybody else who gets engaged. Right? So you need to say that, and you need to be proud of that, and you need to share your story with folks. Now, I'm not telling you to pick up a kindergartner and then tell them about the election, because that won't work. We already got one kindergartner in the White House. We don't need that. Next slide, please. So once we've done an assessment, we need to think about our tactics. And the tactics, just like you'd think, those are the activities we're going to use and the tools we're going to take to demonstrate how do we get to execute the strategy. And Katrina's going to talk about a few of those in a few moments. But obviously, the tools that we would usually use, whether it would be meetings or rallies or face-to-face contact, that may be limited this cycle. So we have to plan accordingly. So maybe it's virtual rallies, right? Maybe it's online petitions. We certainly can wear buttons and shirts and things, but going back to the question that somebody had asked earlier about what can we do besides phone books, again, raise your hands if I can see how many people here have a Facebook page. Okay, well, all you have to do is stop showing that picture of the Red Lobster meal and start talking about some of the education issues that are important to people and how we need to get engaged. So we know that we have social media. We know that we have the phone. We can get through texting and whatever it takes electronically. And that's what we're going to have to do this cycle. So one of the things that we will help you with is how to engage with colleagues and other folks in the community, or maybe it's somebody in your phone directory that you can talk to about the important issues that are coming down the pike this cycle. Next slide, please. This is very true. It's building the infrastructure. We've got 2 or 3 more slides. This is an important one to me. It's what you do. You are the infrastructure. You are the foundation. The system does not work without everybody on this webinar. It just doesn't. And so we need to keep that in mind and remember that as we go through and get organized and start to build our infrastructure. So building the infrastructure is something as simple as, next slide, please. It's something as simple as finding out the folks that you work with, asking them some questions. It's something I call data mining. And this just happens in a 5 or 7 minute conversation. Hey, Eric, are you registered to vote? Great, cool, okay. Then we're gonna give Eric some information about the upcoming election and what's going on. We're gonna talk and we're gonna ask Audrey, can we get a personal email? Great, because we can't communicate through the public school system. So we're gonna need a personal email to reach you. How about a cell phone number? Kathy, can we get a cell phone number? Because that way we can send you a text and we don't have to call you, because I know sometimes it's difficult when working or whatever, you can't answer the phone. How about social media? Are you guys on social media? Great. Are you on Facebook, Instagram, right? Find that one person who's on MySpace still, right? We still want to reach out and communicate, and we're going to have to do it electronically. Other things up there, community ties. Everybody, as I said, you're the foundation. So everybody on this webinar is involved in the community somehow, whether it is a place of worship, whether it is one of the animal clubs, the lions, the tigers, the bears, the Kiwanis. I don't even know if they're an animal, but community groups, a bowling team, right? Family activists. You may have somebody who works in the mayor's office. That's important information to have. That's important information. That may be an in at some point in a cycle. And then your awareness of your association. If you are in a local or maybe your state affiliate has never really targeted something in your area, raise your hand and say, hey, this area is ripe for this. We really ought to get engaged. And then finally at the bottom there, a political action gauge. Just have the conversation with your colleagues. Do you know that how important this election is? You can share information about the HEROES Act or the CARES Act. Let them know. But try to figure out, are they going to be with us to help us or not? And that's okay if they're not, but it helps us when we were going back to making a plan and marshaling our resources. Next slide, please. Last couple of things. Message communications will be absolutely critical in this election cycle. There will be a lot of direct mail that comes from candidates. There will be phone calls that come from candidates and a lot of recorded things and digital. But you guys have an incredible amount of power as colleagues communicating colleague to colleague. People you work with or friends that you have will listen to you because they trust you. They do. They trust you. And so we need to take the opportunity to share information. We're not preaching, but we're going to share information. So whether it is with the work site or in your community or, like I said, family. So what I encourage people to do is create at their work site a message action team. Or, because I work for NEA and we speak in acronyms, a MAT. But for those who are a visual learner, there's Matt Damon. That's Matt. So we look there and we see education reform, education and inform. So we're going to define the message. Elections have consequences. That's our message. And so then we were going to talk to in person, digital organizing. We will make an ask of people. I like to ask everybody who I ever come across to do one thing. I don't need everybody to do 13 things. I need everybody to do one thing, because we can accomplish a lot more working together than 7 or 8 people having to kill themselves doing 10 or 12 things. So think about basic organizing and asking people to take on one task. They can decide what that task is, but we need to get everybody engaged. So down there on the right, you see, maybe it's writing letters to the editor, right? Maybe it is doing call-in talk shows, radio talk, something like that, access cable, writing postcards, or in this particular case, like we said, social media. So in summation, really easily, I need everybody to do one thing. You need to reach out to your colleagues, families, and or friends, but we start with educating ourselves on the issues that are most important to ESPs. Next slide. So when we think about putting it all together, it is who, what, whom, when, and how. Who's going to be responsible for what as we put our plan together? What? The most effective activities and actions to demonstrate the leverage of our power, right? Well, that's important. That's very important to figure out, how do we demonstrate and leverage our power? And thank you for that question, Ray. I want you guys to know, and I hope that everybody's okay with this, but I'm the ESP campaign guy, and you're going to get my email and my cell phone number at the end of this. Don't be blowing my phone up with bad jokes and things. But you can communicate with me if you need help or support in any way in trying to do and get the effort done in the local or in the area where you are. But completing this slide, who are going to be the key decision makers and outreach targets? Who do we need to reach? Maybe it's the building rep. Maybe it is the ESP leader in a work site. Maybe it's somebody in the bus barn. Maybe it's a custodian who is organizing or is the rep or a leader in 3 or 4 schools, right? We have to figure out who the people are that we need to reach out to. We have to obviously figure out a timeline because we don't have unlimited time and we have no idea what the fall is going to look like, whether some are probably going back, some may still be not going back. And then there at the bottom, how many resources do we have? And the resources are time, people, and money. What will we need? Go ahead, Jess. So now I'm going to turn it back over to Katrina because
Yep, and I'm going to go real fast. I'm basically just going to set up some of the work and tools that we have for the 2020 election so that we can hopefully at least get started with the conversation about how you can use them, and then we will figure out a follow-up to continue the conversation. So you're going to hear us talking a lot about relational organizing. What is relational organizing? Well, it's talking to people you know. It's that easy. And it works because it's people you know. But we're going to give you some tools and some ways to do it in a way that's going to help us with the member-to-member persuasion work to try to persuade people to vote for pro-public education candidates, and for the GOTV work, which is the get out the vote work that we need to do just to get people to turn out to vote. And we're also going to use it for the vote by mail work that I'm going to talk about here in a second. The next slide, Jessica. So we are going to be using a new digital tool at NEA. It's called Outreach Circle. We have a training on it next week, June 24th, 4:30 Eastern. If you want to, you can actually scan that QR code right now, and it will get you directly to the app itself. And then you can join us on June 24th to learn exactly all the things you can do with it. But it's a really cool tool that will enable you to send political messaging, candidate messaging, issue messaging directly to your friends and family that we provide you at NEA. It's going to be sort of a one-stop shop where we're going to provide you actions and content that make it really easy for you to then send those messages and take those actions with your friends and family. Next slide. So vote by mail, we've talked about it a few times. It's going to be a really, really important part of the campaign. You know, we could have widespread opening of election sites in the fall. It's unlikely, but it could. But that doesn't mean everyone's going to feel confident in doing it. So our best bet is to get as many members signed up right now as soon as possible. If those members who sign up for vote by mail end up wanting to vote in person, or they can vote in person, they still can. But at least if we get them signed up right now, then we can have that, that safeguard in the bank. And just for reference, about 76% of NEA members have never voted by mail before. So we got our work cut out for us in getting people signed up. Next slide. So to that end, we have created a program called the Early Vote Educators. We will be doing an official launch and announcement on it in a couple of weeks, and we will make sure you have all the information and links to sign up. But we will provide you with the training. What we're doing is asking members to adopt 15 fellow members, walk them through the vote by mail process in their state, and we will provide all that information to you. You do not have to be a vote by mail expert. You do not have to be an expert in election administration in any way. We are going to give you all that information so that you know what to say to people, and then we're going to give you the tools so that you know how you can reach them. We can even give you lists of people if you don't already have a list of people that you can reach out to. We're more than happy to provide you lists of fellow members you could reach out to. Next slide. So, excuse me, we're going to have to talk to members up and down the spectrum of likelihood to vote. We have a lot with that 76% number of members who have not voted before, or not voted by mail before. There's a lot of regular voters in that list, but we still need to get them signed up for the vote by mail program in their state to ensure that they can continue their good records of voting. But we need to do it all. We need to talk to the sporadic voters. We need to talk to the low turnout voters, and we need to definitely make sure we're talking to the persuasion audience, and those are the people that are sort of on the fence right now about Joe Biden, but we want to get them on our side. Next slide. These are just some of the numbers that we think we need in each of these particular states. You can see we need a total of about 30,000 volunteers. So we need everybody on helping us with this program. Like I said, the sign up links will be coming very shortly. But just so you have an idea of what we need to get done, I wanted everyone to see the numbers of the work that needs to get done by state, and that we have quite a lift in front of us, but together we definitely can get it done. Next slide. Yep, so we are doing a couple of things. One, until we have the link sent out in a couple of weeks, if you are itching to just get involved today, which I hope you are, to help us with the Vote by Mail program, you can join us on June 27th. We're going to have a National Day of Action in which we will be hustle texting members, asking them to sign up for Vote by Mail in their states, and we're going to be sending them links so that they can do it directly. If you'd like to volunteer for that, you can email Connor Hurley, and there's his email address right there on your screen. And again, we'll send all this as a follow-up to Jessica so she can share with everybody. But that'll be the first action that we will do, and then after that we will have much more and a lot of other Vote by Mail signups that we'll still need. We will get you signed up for a hustle, your hustle login. That is no problem. We will make sure you have it. And you said digital support, meaning phone banking, hustle, etc., strategic social media. Yep, we're doing all of it. We are going to be doing a lot of hustling, which is texting. We're going to be doing phone banking, and social media is going to be a really important tool this year. We know there's all kinds of messages going around on the internet that aren't true or might have a drop of truth and is, coded with a bunch of other lies. And if we are able to, work together and get the NEA message out, then we can actually combat a lot of that disinformation and misinformation that's happening. So we're going to be doing all of that this election. All right, I think that is it for me. So Lee was going to handle the back end here.
Yeah,
and
so
we want to hear from you.
Yeah, that's right. You have yet something else to do, don't you?
Yeah.
That's all right. That's why we love election years.
Thank you guys so much.
Okay, so there it is. And Jess, I think we're almost ready to wrap. This is my email address, and that's my cell phone number. You can text, you can call, you can email, whatever the case may be. If you have questions, follow-up questions you want, concerns, ideas, things that you think you might want to try, that's fine. Just contact me. I will be your friend. I won't say best friend because you might not like me by the end of the election cycle. Who knows? But we are going to push through this. And we will be doing, I do believe, more webinars to help continue moving the ball down the field so that we can get the right people elected for the public schools and ESPs all across the country. So everybody, please take care of yourselves. It was nice to see you and meet you. Even the person who has the Green Bay logo, I'm not going to hate. Anyway, Jessica, I turn it back to you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much for your presentation. So at this time, we are going to open the floor just for any additional questions that any participants may have for our presenters tonight. If you have any questions, remember, since you are in mute mode, if you can type them into the chat bar, and that way my colleague Dorothy Vu will take care of handling that. She'll take over the question and answer part. If we don't see any questions coming into the chat, we'll just keep moving on to close out, but we did want to give you an opportunity for any last questions or last words. So we have Lee still with us, and we have Eric Brown still with us for questions. And Dorothy, if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself and you can take over.
Yep. It looks like we have one question that says, I think someone mentioned it earlier, but how can you get members to not vote against their own interests?
Really quickly, it's about educating folks because some people just don't have an understanding of where resources come from and you know, because they haven't had anybody reach out and contact them. And that's why I talk about colleague to colleague. We will never get everybody to be on board, but you can talk to people about, did you know? So when they say like, well, you know, Congressman so-and-so did this. Well, wait, no, did you know the money comes from the federal government, comes to the state, and the governor and the Department of Education decide what happens when it gets to our state. So it is educating folks and then telling them what they can do. Actually, the second point is how it impacts them. Third point is what they can do.
And Lee, can I add to that? So
Sure.
one of the other parts of that is we assume we know what their interests are. And what we have to do sometimes is listen and figure out what their interests are. So like ask them, why are you supporting so-and-so? And then if you figure that out, then you can actually hopefully figure out that you can pivot them to somebody else who maybe is more aligned with their interests.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's one of the biggest mistakes sometimes we have, is that we just assume that their interests are the same as our interests.
Right.
And that's not always the case.
Well, as I've told many members in this organization, and I've been at NEA for coming up on 29 years, if things go well, we are all from different stripes and different political parties and all that. But the thing we all have in common is we chose to get into public education. So that's our common point, and that's where we should start, and that's the conversation we should have. So everybody take care of themselves. You will be seeing me again, I promise you.
All right, well, it looks like we don't have any more questions, so I'm going to kick it back to Jess to wrap us up.
Thank you so much, Dorothy. And again, thank you, Lee and Eric and Katrina, and we had Ray and Christine with us this evening. So thank you so much for your participation tonight. As you know, this pandemic is having a devastating impact on our students, on educators, and especially our communities of color. And in times like these, we depend on the stability and support of our public schools, our public health systems, and our public safety nets that they provide. So these services form a network of support that help our communities grow and thrive, and are now facing devastating cuts due to the economic downturn. Whether we are Black or white, Latino or Asian, Indigenous or immigrant, we stand united to ensure our health and safety and future success. That is why NEA has launched a national campaign to demand that Congress respect the work educators do, keep our students, communities, and colleagues safe, support our families, and remove barriers for our collective participation and voice. No exceptions. Congress can do this by immediately passing legislation to stabilize funding for public education in the upcoming school year, as well as addressing inequities impacting our students' opportunities, and provide the necessary resources to protect our students and educators as they re-enter our nation's public schools. This moment calls on us to all go in, for all of us to take part. And so we ask that anyone who is interested in taking part or taking action, that you visit NEA.org/COVID action so that you can participate and we can rise together. We are now at the conclusion of our webinar. And so on behalf of the NEA ESP Quality Department and the Center for Great Public Schools, we would like to thank you for taking the time to participate in the webinar this evening. Please again, keep an eye out for a follow-up email that will include a link to the webinar recording within 7 to 10 business days. A link will also be made available on the NEA ESP PD archive webpage. There are many ways that you can continue to stay engaged on topics such as tonight's discussion. In addition to the resources and the links that were shared tonight, we also have Communities, which is NEA's online professional learning community that allows educators to collaborate on issues that are important to them, share resources and ideas, network, and much more. And so we encourage you that if you are not a member of Communities, that you become a member of Communities. We also encourage you to continue to regularly visit the NEA ESP Professional Development webpage. That website is NEA.org/ESPPD. You see it right there on the screen, and it allows you to stay up to date with upcoming webinar presentations. Also from that web link, you can also go to find the gain access to the archive webpage as well. In a moment, you will see tonight's webinar evaluation appear on your screen in the form of a 3-question poll. And once you have completed that poll, you will be able to download the session materials from tonight that will appear in the chat box as PDF files that you'll be able to download. And so I am going to get the poll going right now. And once you finish taking the poll, you can download the files that will be in the chat box.
Can I answer the poll, Jessica?
If you would like.
About 40 times. About 40 times.
You sure can. And as the poll is being completed, again, if you have any questions or you think of anything before we close out the chat box, please feel free to type them in. We will make sure that those questions are directed to our presenters tonight, and they will get back to you with answers. So please feel free to continue to use that chat while the session is still open. All right, it looks like everyone has taken the poll. Good job, when we are done. So I will leave the chat box open for a little while longer so that you can download the files. And then I'll give you about 3 or 4 minutes. I'll know if I see the people starting to log off, then I'll know that you got it. But I'll give you 3 or 4 minutes to download those files, and then we will close out officially for the night. If you are having trouble downloading those files, feel free to send an email to espqweb@nea.org, and we will make sure that we get a copy of those files to you. Again, as a live participant in tonight's webinar session, you are able to request a personalized certificate, and you can do that by sending an email to espqweb@nea.org. You would include personalized certificate in the subject line, and in the body, you would include the title of tonight's session, as well as your name as it appears when you registered for this session. I see you waving, Erica. You're logging off. Thank you for joining us this evening.
I know we're supposed to be closing and wrapping up. Could I ask you a question? Our agenda, the Region 37 agenda said the meeting started at 7 o'clock, from 7 to 8. Was there some kind of misunderstanding with our agenda?
We started at 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I came on at 7 and you were out, and now you could wrap. I was on about 3 minutes or 2 and you're wrapping up. But my information said from 7 until 8.
And what state are you connected?
Illinois.
Okay.
I'm with Region 37, IEA.
So you're an hour behind us. So it's 6 o'clock. It's 7 o'clock there. It's 8 o'clock here in DC.
Right. Yeah, we're an hour different.
Okay.
But the session was recorded, and we will have a recording available in 7 to 10 business days. And so you will have the opportunity to get a copy of the recording from tonight. And since you are already logged on, if you go into the chat box, you can download the files, which are the materials from the session tonight. So you will already have that available for yourself.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Maybe in the future, we should all get on the same time wave, the same wavelength. Okay, thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you for joining us.
Sure.
Jessica, where? I don't see where to download.
So the files, you might have to scroll up because some people have been commenting. If you scroll up in the chat box, you will see 2 files that are there. One is a certificate and one is the PowerPoint for tonight. Underneath each file, you'll see it has a little PDF emblem in the chat box. Underneath each file is the word download in blue. And if you click on that, it'll download that file.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. Am I the only one on?
I'll give everyone one more minute to download the files. Is anyone else having an issue downloading? Again, send an email to espqweb@nea.org, and I'll type that in the chat box right now. Send a request, and I can make sure that you get a copy of the PowerPoints, the handouts.
Thank you, because I'm done here.
And I see some have connected via cell phone or other device and you aren't able to download those files. Again, please send an email because we have so many participants. I won't be able to remember quite everyone who's requesting it through the chat, but if you send an email to espqweb@nea.org, some of you who know me personally, you have my email as well. You can go ahead and shoot me an email as well. If you aren't where you can write down the webinar email address, and I will make sure that you get a copy.
All right, Jessica, if you need anything else, let me know.
Okay, thank you so much, Lee.
Welcome aboard. Here we go. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much.
Sounds good.
Take care, everybody.
Good night.
Take care.
So it looks like just about everyone has downloaded.
Not me. I sent an email.
And I'll make sure that you get it. If you send me an email, I'll make sure you got it. You get it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So I want to thank everyone for participating in tonight's session. Please be sure to visit www.nea.org/ESPPD to stay up to date with both recorded and upcoming webinar sessions. Thank you and have a wonderful evening.